Hi, everybody. Hello, Robert.
Caroline, it's lovely to be with you again.
Oh, it's always lovely to be with you. And hello to all of you. We are doing this message to you, an invitation to view a wonderful seminar that Robert and I did last year. And we thought what we would do is chat with you about this seminar and why we think it's so relative. And it's called The Holy Season for Mystics. And we're going to start with Robert kind of giving an overview of the 6 classes that we presented. Robert, have at it.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm going to give you an overview, everyone, of these 6 classes that Carol and I put together, and then after that, we're going to have a conversation about what the holy season for mystics means to us right now in our life. So I'm going to read to you, if I may, just a little bit from the description of the holy season for mystics. It's a series of 6 classes where we're exploring the deeper mystical meaning of Christmas time, the winter solstice, the festivals of light, Hanukkah, and the New Year. It's a journey really from Advent to Epiphany. And here's a short write-up of the description. Long before the Christian celebration of Christmas, ancient societies of all traditions had their rituals and celebrations of the ending of the dark nights and the return of the light. A divine message was inherent in this cycle of nature. Birth will always follow death. Life is forever renewed. After the winter, a spring is always promised. Life has been designed to nurture life, to sustain you, even though you will travel through the dark again and again in life. We put together a feast of inquiries, conversations, meditations, and prayers from the great wisdom traditions and from many of our favorite sources, our favorite Christian mystics, as well as William Shakespeare, Charles Dickens, A Course in Miracles, Rumi, St. Teresa of Avila, and many more besides. Webinar 1, we called The Celebrating of the Light. We talked about the holy lamp of fire, a call to prayer, and allowing light to split us open. Webinar 2, Growing in the Darkness. We talked about light in the darkness, the purpose of darkness, the treasures that are to be found in the darkness. We also did a Christmas tree meditation. Webinar 3, The Birth of Christ in You. Meister Eckhart, the 14th century mystic, said, "What good is it to me that Mary gave birth to the Son of God 1400 years ago, and I do not also give birth to the Son of God in my time and in my culture?" So here we will explore in this webinar the Annunciation of Mary, Making Room at the Inn, the story of Nicodemus from the Gospel of John, also the Anatomy of Christos. The next webinar, webinar 4, A Cosmic-Sized Love. This is one of Caroline's phrases. I love it so much. A cosmic-sized love. And here we're looking at anthropos, being fully human and fully divine. We talk about the hymn of the universe and the birth of a beloved community on earth. Webinar 5, Epiphany, a time for miracles. Choosing love over fear, the feast of the Epiphany. And then webinar 6, the final one, the bright morning star. I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year, says Scrooge in Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Here we talk about the call of your charism, invisible acts of power, being more Christ-like, and also the holy imagination. So these were our 6 classes that we put together at this time. This is a conversation really that Caroline and I have participated in many times over the years. And we wanted to offer this standalone class as well for us to have this opportunity to join together with you during this holy season. The holy season is absolutely a time for deep questioning. Asking larger questions gives us access to a larger life. It's also a time for intimate conversations, more intimate than usual, perhaps, so that we can really address this journey from Advent to Epiphany with our whole selves. So in this class, we are going to share with you 6 ways to prepare for and participate in the holy season. Caroline and I will talk backwards and forwards with each other as we normally do. And we've called this class the Holy Season for Mystics. And I just want to begin by just sharing a couple of notes about mysticism. The first one is that I'd like to share something that the Carmelite friar William McNamara said. He said that the mystic is not a special kind of person. Each person is a special kind of mystic. So mysticism is a conversation that is relevant to each and every one of us. And the invitation here from mysticism is for us to have a direct experience of something that once before may just have been an idea in our mind, in our thinking. The second idea that I'd like to share with you is it's an idea that mysticism comes from realizing that nothing separates us from the love of God and from the light of heaven. Any experience of separateness is what Einstein called the optical delusion. Mysticism is the awareness that we have absolutely a direct connection and direct access to everything that is real and true. One more idea. This is from Carl Jung. Only the mystics bring religion to what is creative itself. I feel very fortunate personally that my introduction to religion actually didn't happen through my mother and my father. My mother and my father, by the way, were just too busy for religion. We were always bobbing just above or below the poverty line, and we were busy making ends meet. We had no time for religion. The only time we ever visited church in my village, I grew up in a little village called Littleton in the south of England. The only time we ever visited church was to meet the Easter Bunny at Easter and Father Christmas at Christmas time. And that was it. So there was no time for any religion in my upbringing, which actually in some ways I see as a blessing, because it meant I didn't really have to undo very much. But when I was introduced to religion, to the holy season, to Christianity, it was actually through mystics, and mystics from India, interestingly. And I think this introduction to many of the great themes that we're exploring here in the Holy Season for Mystics, the fact that this came to me through mysticism, I think was a blessing, because mysticism encourages you to take the Holy Season very personally. Mysticism tells us that the Holy Season is not about historical religious journalism. We're not commemorating or honoring something that happened once upon a time, or at least not only are we celebrating that or commemorating that, we are also accepting the timeless invitation that is available to us right now. So, to get us started, I'd like to share some thoughts on Advent. Advent is, for me personally, one of my favorite practices of the year. Every Advent is the most important Advent yet. When we look at the state of our world, the fact that our planet wobbles on its axis, that so many of us face so many challenges, both personal and global, I think we can see that Advent is important to us, especially when we understand what Advent is. With each year that passes, personally, I've learned to appreciate the invitation of Advent more fully, to prepare for it more consciously, and to be willing to participate in it in a way where it's personal as well as impersonal. This is a chance to engage our imagination, our holy imagination. The meaning of Advent really is preparation. The word Advent comes from the Latin adventus, meaning arrival. Something is arriving. The Greek word for Advent is parousia, and that means presence, which I think I prefer presence to arriving, because parousia tells us that actually the very thing that we think is arriving is already here. If anything, it's not that Advent and the presence of Advent is arriving, it's more that we are arriving. It's up to us. I'm a student of A Course in Miracles, a wonderful Christian mystical text, which encourages us to choose love over fear. And there's a line which simply says this: prepare yourself for miracles today. That, for me, is the Advent invitation. In A Course in Miracles, it says, the miracle comes quietly into the mind that stops an instant and is still. So our work is to prepare ourselves for Advent and to accept the invitation of Advent. How do we do that? This morning, I set aside an hour just to empty my mind, to be available and open and receptive to what Advent might mean for me this year. And I'd like to share with you some of my journaling on what Advent is. The first thought that arose in my mind was that Advent is really a time for alignment. The mystics tell us that we are capable of the universe. We are capable of the universe, but only if we align ourselves with the universe. We are made by the universe, for the universe, and our work is to align ourselves with the universal laws so that we can participate fully in our life. Willingness. Advent is not an act of will. It's tuning in to a higher will. For the holy season, we have to allow the holy season that wants to happen, not the holy season that we want to make happen by ourselves. Most of us have some idea of how we want the holy season to go. We make our plans. We have some idea of what the perfect holy season is going to be, but the honest truth is we don't know. And so our work is to offer a little willingness so as to allow the holy season that wants to happen for us to happen to us. To prepare for Advent, we have to engage with the point of nothingness that exists inside of us. Every now and then, I like to visit this point of nothingness inside of me. It's where I take a moment to stop trying to be a somebody. It's where I cease all activity and I allow the action of the universe to come through me. I make a space inside of myself. I make a space inside of my body, but I also make space inside of my heart and in my mind to allow for that cosmic-sized love to come through. This is all about emptying our minds. The spiritual practice that goes with this really is called kenosis, emptying ourselves, making contact with the uncreated spark of light within us so that we can be more open and receptive and available to what wants to happen in our life at this time. You know, I also like to think of Advent not just as a time of year, but as a presence. Indeed, I like to think of Advent like as an angel who will guide us, support us, and inspire us if we will let it. Our work is making ourselves spontaneously available to our life and to this time in our life as well, and this time in history. So therefore, we must make no plans, and we must allow the big plan to come to us so that we can participate in that big plan. It's a time of surrender, absolutely, just like Mary did in her Annunciation. And most of all, it's a time to incarnate more fully, to participate more fully in our lives. It's a time to ask our soul, what do you want of me at this time? I know what Amazon wants of me. I know what Google wants of me. I know what the economy is asking of me right now. I know what the politicians are asking of me. But what does my soul ask of me at this time? Can I make myself available to that so that I can accept the invitation of Advent? So, with this in mind, the great work, I think, is to practice what is sometimes called basic openness, opening ourselves up again and again and again to life. And there's a wonderful prayer meditation by Howard Thurman. Howard Thurman was the mentor to Martin Luther King. This is a book called The Mood of Christmas and Other Celebrations. And he has a particular meditation that I'd like to share with you now as a way of opening up this conversation with you. And it's called Lord, Lord, Open Unto Me. So let's take a moment. Take a moment to find your feet. I always feel if you can find your feet, you can find the present moment. If you know where your feet are, you know where the present moment is. So find your feet. You might then want to place your hand on your heart just to make sure you know where your heart is, that you can be in alignment with the wisdom of your heart. And then let's just open up the mind and take in this wonderful invocation, really, by the wonderful Howard Thurman. Open unto me light for my darkness. Open unto me courage for my fear. Open unto me hope for my despair. Open unto me peace for my turmoil. Open unto me joy for my sorrow. Open unto me strength for my weakness. Open unto me wisdom for my confusion. Open unto me forgiveness for my sins. Open unto me tenderness for my toughness. Open unto me love for my hates. Open unto me thy will for myself. Lord, Lord, open unto me. And this is our practice. This is our practice for Advent, being open, radically open, wide open and available. And I've mentioned it already, but I think a spectacular Advent practice would be to give God 1 hour of your time at some point in the next few days. 1 hour of your time where you do nothing. You find that point of nothingness and you simply say yes to this season and to Advent and to the arrival and the presence of something wonderful. And that's a good place to start. Caroline.
Oh, well. Oh, that was lovely. That was just absolutely lovely, Robert. You know, when you start, you just get into such a beautiful inner flow. And I think one of the things I love most about you is how deeply you are what you teach.
Mhm.
You
Thank
know,
you.
you really are that
Mm.
presence. You really are that Christological force. It's a pleasure, really. It's a
Mary,
pleasure.
thank you
Um,
so much.
and actually, I'm going to keep a double screen because
Yeah,
we'll just chat away.
great.
Um, what I how I want to just support what Robert's beautiful message is that, and I always think a message is inspired when it inspires. And so I was sitting here getting inspired. And um, for me, when I look at, we could call it traditions like Advent or
Mm,
Easter or any of these Passover, any of these high holy seasons that have lasted now thousands of years. I think they're more than just social traditions. They become,
mm,
in a sense, archetypal. They become archetypal in their significance and in the fact that I have long looked at the teachings in Christianity or in Judaism or in Buddhism that, for me, um, I think the source of where they came from is soul archetypal. It's because there's something about the ritual. There's something about it that we need that we don't even realize we need. To wit, why are there 7 sacraments? Not 10, not 12, 7 that align to 7 chakras, that align to the 7 levels of the tree of life, that align to the 7 notes in a musical scale. Why?
mm,
Why is it, or why are we organized? And even our sacramental journey of anointing, why are there 7 liberal arts? What, it, there's something in the scale that we are designed as a scale. So we start with baptism when we first arrive, and then we move on to communion, and then to confirmation, where we acknowledge we have a conscience, and it goes on and on and on like that. That these sacraments stand apart. They're not ordinary rituals. They're not ordinary celebrations. We don't have 1,000 sacraments. We have very few.
mm,
And we have very few because they're so powerful, because they involve the soul, not just the mind, not your social community. They involve something at soul level. They reverberate all the way into your eternity. And in that same way, I think the idea of Advent, and here is something that I think is really true. This is a truth. It's not true, it's a truth. The truth is, the human being is in a constant battle between light and darkness. Every single thing in your life, everything, every word
mm,
you choose, every relationship, everything is a theater, part of the theater in which you are dealing with the power of light or the power of darkness in your life. And that's all there's to it. Cleverly disguised as a marriage or a child or a job or your attitudes or a fear, it doesn't matter. This is the many of the disguises that light or shadow take, that good or evil takes. It's just a theater in which we are constantly confronted with the power of our choice,
mm.
and whether we will engage the assistance of light or we will engage the assistance of darkness. That's it. That is as simple as I can put it, right on the ground. And we know this. We are born knowing this. We are born knowing this, which is why I think the rituals that we have speak of light, speak of light coming, coming again, coming always. And it sounds so vague. Like, what does that mean? I don't get what it means. I don't I you know, to, like, even in the poem that Robert just shared, it was the light that looks like courage, light that manifests as patience, light that manifests in some way that I need. That's how light comes to us. It's not just a vague word. Advent, the season of light. Now, there's something in us, there's something in every one of us. We're born this way. We have a mechanism that draws us to the light, like
Mm.
insects around a flame. We are we're drawn to light, to people who radiate light, to uh, to sunlight. We're drawn to light because it somehow or other brings, reignites, strengthens our life force. Light and life force go together. And Advent is to me this promise, even though at the, how do I say it, the superficial level, at the most base level, it got converted into this belief that there is a second coming, and Jesus, somehow there's going to be a second coming, and there's just a group of select 144,000 people, and they're just going to be lifted off into La La Land or something. That is absolute nonsense. It's garbage. But what the second, I'm not in a position to even speculate what the mystical meaning of the second coming is, except to offer the perspective that we thrive in the light, and that we also thrive in the, there's a mechanism in us that wants to be recognized, that wants to feel like our life is not an accident, that we just didn't fall out of a tree or whatever, that somehow or other we want to hear God call us by name in some way. In some way, we want to think, oh, I'm here. I'm not just a stray creature wandering here. I I'm here. We want to hear God call us by name. And that need is so deep that it gets converted in earth speak to, at the earth level, the need to be recognized, acknowledged, the rotting of the ego kind of thing. But at the soul level, it's the need to have light come to you directly, to actually embrace the light directly, to not be afraid of truth, to not be afraid, to be, to have the light of consciousness come into you and let illusions rot, just fall away, the scales from your eyes, as it were, fall away, so that you could embrace the light. Every human being wants that. I don't care what they say. This has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with that. It is our design. Listen, there is no God that has a religion. Let's get something very straight. There's no such thing as a God with a religion. We made up religions. This universe existed a long time before there was a religion, before there was Christianity, before there was anything. The nature of God is light. And in order to understand the power of that light, you have to go through the structure of the universe, which is law and order. It's constancy, it's promise. And what is Advent? This guarantee that no matter how dark it gets, I will send the light. I will always be there. I will always send light. So that to me is this season of, and I love Advent, and I love going into the winter. I love the journey into the dark and then into the spring. I love that feeling of it's time to pull in and to reflect and to not be distracted. And obviously people like Robert and me, we, people who like the company of our thoughts and our minds, and then we write them down and we think the world should read them, right? But we thrive in Advent time, but we also thrive in this time because I think it's in harmony with, excuse me, a fundamental design in us, which is I need time to go inside and reflect on what's really the role of life. What's my
Mm.
power? What is this life about? How am I doing? And um, to me, the season of Advent is one of those seasons that came into being even in the 4th century, but it came into being because it was people took centuries to understand this light that Jesus introduced that represented. Well, what's he talking about? But what they were realizing is whatever force he was a part of was still with them, or was with them because of prayer, or was with them through miracles. And it hadn't been there before, but it was now. I think that's so extraordinary. I do. This kind of thing just blows me away. It blows me away. It blows me away. I'm not kidding you. I mean, I can't get over that. It's things like that, and I think I'm God awestruck, and I was born that way. I just was born that way. I'm just always in awe of God. So that's what I have to say about Advent.
Caroline, for me, you've never really left the light alone. You know, you always come back to your relationship to light. And one of the things that I really appreciated in the 6 classes that we put together was that you said over and over again, look, light is not a metaphor.
Right.
You know, we're not talking about some divine coin that gets given to you or taken away from you. It's not a commodity. It's not a metaphor. It's not an idea. It's not a thing. You are made of this stuff called light. It's personal and impersonal. And for me, there's something about when I listen to you talk about the light, for me, I feel like the light is now becomes more personal.
Mm.
Um,
You know how to think of it,
yeah.
Robert? You know how to think of it? Think of it like the way we use God, how we use God. We're using God. Our life is the experience of using God through our life. That every let me see if I can say this right. I don't know if I can, but we're kept alive through the light.
Mm.
We're in every thought we have, everything that animates us, everything that is us, is this light. We are literally using God to stay alive.
Mm.
We're literally living off this force, which is exactly why when we start to get how this force works, it starts working more effectively in us and through us.
Mm.
When we start getting, wait a minute here, I'm actually using you. So I need to humble up, which is exactly why when we finally get it, and he
Mm.
says, just ask for more of me.
Yeah.
Just ask for more, which is exactly why the more humble, and you say, this really isn't me. This isn't my stuff. This isn't my design. I'm telling you, it's not me. You just don't get how much it's not me. But I'm beginning to get how much it's not me.
Yeah.
Which is why when the mystics surrendered, they said, whoa, ho, ho, baby. This is why when Padre Pio and Francis got the stigmata, they finally got it so much that Jesus could fully dwell in them and say, I'm taking over this machine here because they are fully me and I am fully with them. These mystical truths are so profound that when you get a glimpse of them and your jaw drops. It's so incredible.
And you're just making it so personal for me when you speak like this, Caroline. And you know, I was doing a piece of research recently looking at bioluminescence and this extraordinary thing that happened. It was in 2009 when Japanese scientists were able to capture the first ever images of our human glow, which showed that we are bioluminescent, that the body is luminous. The interesting thing is that the light that the body gives off is 1,000 times weaker than the human eye can see. Now, that in itself tells me that we're not really calling upon the light as much as we could. You know, it's 1,000 times weaker than the physical eye can see, but we are literally bioluminescent. This is not, we're not talking poetry anymore. This
Right.
isn't a metaphor. We are literally
This is our
made
stuff.
of the light. Yeah.
Yes. Well, how could it be otherwise? If we're molecules, we're atoms. It's got to
Mm.
be that. We
Mhm.
are. We are the stuff of light.
Yeah. And somehow in one of the classes I shared with you how I was trained by Sister Elaine McGuinness, who was a Roman Catholic nun and a Buddhist, a Zen Buddhist meditator. Her definition of meditation is light sitting in light.
Mhm.
When you meditate, when you pray, you are light calling to light. You are light in light. You're not asking for something that you're not.
Mhm.
You're not asking for something that's not here already. What you are asking for is the awareness that you're made of this and that you want to be in alignment with it instead of shining like a separate self around the world, you know, creating your own light. You're saying, no, I'm not here to create my own light. I'm here to be lit up by the light.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the work essentially. And I think that's what Advent's for.
Yeah. I think that's exactly. I think that's why, holy seasons are so essential for people, because I think it's such a great challenge to hold a belief in the sacred in a
Mm,
world that's in chaos.
mm,
I mean, it's very. Someone just wrote me and said, I had they published these little things that I say on. I don't know if it's TikTok or what. I don't know, but they took one of my quotes in which I said, give up the need to know why things happen as they do, and live in the present moment, and all of which I think is incredibly wise advice. But at a time when the world is at war, and whether you're at war with yourself or just the world is at war, it's always when you are experiencing injustice that you will say, but here's the exception to that. You see, this is why I can't live by the light, because here's the exception. See what's happening here? And see what's happening in Gaza, and see what's happening here, and et cetera, et cetera. And they always use people always use mass injustice as an excuse to not engage the power of the mystical truths and the power that they have to transform the very world they're looking at. The very world, and I said, this is exactly when what you choose at the mystical level matters the most. It's exactly to walk into the storm and to believe that you can hold your mystical heart in spite
mm,
of what you see. If you become filled with bitterness and resentment and decide those people are wrong or these people are wrong because of what you see, if you choose sides, if you don't realize that you are separating yourself, you're not separating them, you are
mm,
fracturing yourself, and the dark has won.
mm,
Once again, the dark has recruited another person,
mm.
because that's how it works.
Yeah. This, yeah, the temptation to give up and not participate in the story of creation is obviously very strong for all of us. We can turn on the news and feel so overwhelmed that we check out.
Yes.
We hop back onto cloud nine and we just do our very best to wait until we hope we get beamed back up to heaven at some point. This is something we all understand, and yet the invitation of Advent is, I think, isn't it, is to be able to be willing to be a light in the world somehow and in some way. And I'm actually thinking, Caroline, we I have a very dear friend. Holly and I have a very dear friend called Viva, who we met Viva at the school gate at our school. and she has 2 children at the school, and we became friends, um, frankly, because of the light in her eyes.
Mm.
You know, when you meet someone
Yeah,
and the light in their eyes, you just go, wait a minute,
yeah,
you're interesting. There's
yeah,
something about you.
yeah.
So we became friends with Viva, and after getting to know her for a while, mostly conversations at the school gate, one day I just did say, well, what do you do? And she was with a friend actually at the time, Jasmine. I write about this story actually in Higher Purpose. But anyway, I was with Jasmine, and I'd asked Viva, what do you do? And Jasmine said, don't you know? And I said, no. She's a bus driver. She's a bus driver. She drives buses in London. And she's just been made Bus Driver of the Year. Now, Viva gets, all embarrassed for a moment. Don't say that, So what do you mean Bus Driver of the Year? So she was nominated for Bus Driver of the Year in the UK. So there's thousands and thousands of bus drivers everywhere. And I said, well, how did you win that? And, she said, oh, I don't know. I said, no, you must know how you won it. And Jasmine then pipes up, well, she blesses everybody who comes on the bus. That's how she won it. And of course, it's true. Once we started to talk, and once Viva explained what she does and how she blesses everybody who comes onto her bus, it was of no surprise that she would win an award like that. In particular, because, of course, she has no need to win that award. And in fact, the joke's on her, because it's the sort of thing that her personality structure wouldn't even want to win. But the fact is, she's Bus Driver of the Year. And 2 or 3 years after that, her face now, by the way, is on every other double-decker bus in London.
Oh, that's
And
wonderful.
her eyes are just beaming out onto everybody. The whole point is, I'm sharing the story just again because it's the personal and the impersonal at
Right.
work here, isn't it? She hasn't set out to be Bus Driver of the Year. She hasn't set out to shine her light. She hasn't set out to, do any of these things. But the fact is, though, she was raised with an awareness of the light. And she was raised with the awareness from her mother and her father from Ghana that we are here to be a blessing to each other. And it doesn't matter what we do, it doesn't matter where we are, we can be a blessing to each other. And her work was simply to bless people who came on her bus. And look what happened.
It wasn't you say when you say her work was simply, are you kidding? That's a
Yeah,
calling. That
that's a
is
call.
a deep, profound calling. She's a living saint.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that to me is that's living Advent.
Yeah,
That's bringing the light into someone's darkness.
yeah.
And she's living the spirit of Advent. It's not seasonal for her. It
No,
it becomes just like you start living the spirit of Easter, which is to live in the resurrection, which is to live in the idea that everything, life is the cycle of endings and beginnings, and when things are resurrected, it's a new beginning. And these profound holy seasons
yeah,
are not just seasons, they're meant to be embraced inner cycles that we just get, that bringing the anticipation of light into everything. It's not a 4-week cycle, it's a life cycle,
yes, yeah,
So I just I love this class that we did.
yeah.
And
And
I
I love that we can talk about this and talk about it in a way where we can bring it into the everyday, and this sense of, I say, recognizing this light in each other is so important, isn't it? And if I may, I'm just thinking as well. So we have our Advent fair, which we just had just a couple of days ago. I run the coffee store at the Advent fair.
You're a barista.
Yeah, I've done it for years and years and years. But this year we had a new person come. His name is Dumo. He came to help out. And again, it's undeniable. He's got that light in his eyes. It's obvious, and we get talking for a little bit. And I just said to Dumo, look, can we just cut to the chase and accept that we're going to be best friends from now on? And we'll catch up with each other as to why we're best friends. But I just want to, acknowledge how happy I am that we're running the coffee store together today. And fortunately, he felt the same way. So that was good. So we decided to become friends. We swapped emails. He then sent me his manifesto for his coffee business. And he's in the business of spreading light. The whole manifesto didn't mention coffee beans once. It was all about spreading the light through the work he's doing right now. I said to him, it said, you know, to me, what you've done today at this coffee stall, you've turned this coffee stall into a church. You made it into a church just by your presence. I'm watching you. I'm seeing how you are with people. And I know you're going to tell me it's nothing much. You're probably used to it. But I'm watching you and I'm having a holy experience watching you serve coffee to people. And I just want to say thank you very much, you know. And we also both agreed, by the way, that coffee is a delivery device for the Holy Spirit. So we're on the same page there as well. But again, it's just another, isn't it? It's another one of the everyday examples of this light is spectacular. It is universal, but somehow it can also just be very personal and somehow very much in our everyday if we give ourselves over to it.
I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah.
And I want to end our little chat with it and say that I think that this course is so relevant, especially because we're cycling into what seems to be more chaos than less, especially when I think our need to understand that the presence of light is everywhere. And it's not in making the world a better place, because that's our task. That's what we have to understand. We are the agents of light. And it's really the journey of each person to understand how to use the power of your light, no matter where you are, no matter in the way you think, in the way you perhaps withhold judgment, in the way you decide, I need to see this a different way. However it is you decide, I need to increase the light on this subject. I need to increase the light on how I'm thinking. This is how you start that stream of light turning into an absolute blast of light inside of you. And you can say, I need to share my light. Just let whatever light I have in my heart shine upon this person. These are profound prayers. And it doesn't matter that you don't see the consequences of them.
No.
It doesn't matter. We are all life breathes together.
Yeah. One of the things that I love to do around this time of year is just I create an Advent journal. I always try and a new one. And I think it is about creating that space to be a light that sits in the light and to really allow the light to show us how to do this as well. You know, I think it's again, we give ourselves over to this experience and ask the light to do it, you know, ask the light to show us how. So I think and to keep an Advent journal whilst you take these 6 classes with us, I think would be a very, very good idea, because there is just a huge amount of inspiration in, I think, what it is we were looking at together. So that would be a big recommendation from me.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you. Everybody, we invite you to go to the myss.com website, and I'm sure attached to this little video Advent message will be the details on how to take this class, and I hope you will. Both Robert and I hope you will, and have a very merry holy season.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, everybody.